we got false charged by the alpha, where a false charge is when they pound their chest and run at you.
Did you get that?
You're listening to Studio 22.
How you feeling today, Brock?
I'm feeling good. I've got a bug. A travel bug.
Okay.
But I'm not doing anything about it, so we're going to talk about it today.
Had me worried.
No real bugs. I'm fit as a fiddle, as they would say.
Healthy as an ox.
Healthy as an ox. I like that one even better.
Not as good rhyming, though.
I agree. But strong as a bull, you know?
Strong. That one I like. Strong like bull. Bull in a china shop. Penny is a little bull in a china shop in this studio sometimes. We have a cool episode today. We are going to talk about places we've traveled and, you know, what we like about them and things to look out for there. And, you know, I think it'll be pretty cool because I'm sure you've been to some of them out there, maybe live in one of them or, you know, whatever. But yeah, it's a good topic to dive into. Are you excited?
Absolutely.
We're doing a travel episode because of how important traveling is to us. The people you meet, the cultures you learn about, and experiencing the world. I think the more you travel, the more you truly can understand your fellow human, literally. Whether it's domestically into another city or whether it's all across the world, you get to really learn about people, why we are the way we are, and learn about not just your history or your people's history, but other people's history. And I think it's really important when moving forward in a society to understand other people and, you know, work towards a better understanding.
Yeah, I would agree with that fully. I think, you know, I'm so grateful for the, you know, ability to travel as much as I have or access to it as well. Because when I was growing up, you know, I was fortunate to go maybe 3 places before I was like 23, 24 when I first really traveled for the first time, which was to New York. But before it was with friends and just those couple little moments of Ireland when I was 12, Canada as well, even though we didn't really see many people, it was the experience that I had with nature, with eagles, you know, just this with my...
The eagles in Canada are fucking awesome.
Yeah, I have a wild eagle story that is really cool. I'll save it for another time. But
stole your sardines.
Yeah, and but no, it's that, you know, you see people from different cultures with different history that experience life differently from you, and when you grow up and if you're stuck in a small town or any town really, and that's all you ever know, your perspective is only going to be limited to that, which, you know, it could be big or it could be small, but you get these habits and we kind of stay contained in our own little worlds. When you venture out of that and you go to somewhere like Ireland or Spain or, you know, Brazil or wherever it may be, it's a whole different world. You know, it's just like we have accents in different cities and different states in the U.S. It's the same thing overseas, right? Well,
yep.
You start to pick up these habits and these things that are just complete. It's not just accents, but a way of life.
That's an example.
Yeah, so it's a way of life that's different. So you can have somewhere that's more relaxed and not as uptight, you know, or like not go like New York, you know, like Spain. You know, you get to experience a siesta in the middle of the day and things are a little more slow paced and relaxed and it's not so stressful, you know. And it's you know, whatever works for you. Some people prefer that versus the latter, and so it's eye opening, it's perspective opening, and it's something that I feel we can use and need if we have the opportunity to expand our consciousness, our way of being, so that we are more receptive to others and how others do life. You know, whether that's in our small little vein of the way we see the world or if it's a larger one. But at the end of the day, like it's something I think helps us as people to grow through and through. If you have the opportunity to do it, take it, even if it's to the next city over, you know, even if it's just taking a drive to another state, you know, whatever that is for you. But it's highly recommended from a perspective, consciousness shifting view of the world that I think in turn pays us back by helping us kind of come together, in a way. So it's not just about us, it's about all of us. You know what I mean?
Well said.
Okay, well, where should we start? Should we start in California? Should we list a few little spots off that we enjoy, or what do you think?
Yeah, start locally. Yosemite National Park. Beautiful area. We both have hiked Half Dome, which is one of the major attractions there. The documentary Free Solo. He climbs Half Dome without rope, which is insane and amazing.
Yeah. Crazy. Do you have any quick little fun stories about Yosemite or not? Because I got a little one.
I don't, but I would just say Half Dome, El Capitan, Yosemite Falls. They have an Ansel Adams gallery there, Mirror Lake, tons of places you can go, and beautiful camping.
Yeah, absolutely. I had I think that might have been the first place I ever technically traveled to. I want to say 12, maybe 11, but I think I was 12. We did a school trip. I went to a private school for a very brief amount of time in my childhood. And when we went there, I think I lived at sea level virtually my entire life. It was Palm Springs, it was, LA, it was Florida, everything was sea level. We climbed Half Dome, and I got so sick from altitude sickness. And I don't even think it's really that, maybe I don't know how high it is, I'd have to look it up, but it couldn't have been too crazy, probably 6,000, 8,000 feet maybe max, but whatever it was enough to get me just gassed. And I remember cover your ears if you don't want to hear this, but I was throwing up everywhere, and all the kids in my class were like, I want to take a video, I want to do this. We're a bunch of 12-year-olds going crazy, and everyone's asking all these crazy questions. But I do remember when we finally made it to the top, because we camped up there at altitude one day, and
what mushrooms are you on?
They at 12 years old, they asked what kind of drugs I was doing. I was like, I'm not doing any drugs.
Yeah, what's a drug?
Yeah, pretty much. And but when we got up there, man, it was one of the most beautiful sights I'd ever seen. And there was this one part at the top that still had ice in there from I don't know how many years it's been there. And one of the kids in our class, this guy Zan, he was a big boy. He fully matured at 10. He was a full-grown man with a stash just like that. Walked out onto this ice in this crevasse, and it was razor thin at the end of it, and it could have broke any moment. He would have fallen a couple thousand feet. But all in all, that was my Half Dome story.
I love it. I hope you're feeling better. 20 years later.
Yeah. I think I've become accustomed to the altitude at this point.
Yeah, I got lucky when I hiked Half Dome with my class in 8th grade. We luckily no one puked, but
did you actually do that too?
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah. Very similar story actually, but just nothing dramatic.
Yeah, it was not fun hiking miles and miles with a full pack and then puking everywhere. Not fun.
Not
fun.
Sounds terrible. Sticking on the national park theme, Glacier National Park and Yellowstone National Park, we kind of do those together up in Montana, and it extends into Canada, etc. But we would go up to Glacier from Whitefish, Montana, and do kind of these long day trips. And then Pops and my big brother and I did a week-long excursion through the Bob Marshall Wilderness, where you fly fish and camp and horseback ride and kind of go through and trek. Just some beautiful country up there, and then you see the glaciers and all that, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
But yeah, I would say that's another incredible national park in the U.S. where, kind of on the West Coast, near the West Coast mountains, you could get to and explore.
Yeah, I think, national parks are just, I'm so glad that they preserve them in our country, and that, there's a place like that we can go and visit, and it hasn't been tainted or ruined by, buildings and, corporations, and, it's protected for a reason, and, it's our job to take care of it as well, and clean up after ourselves and not litter and all that. But they're beautiful, man. They're beautiful. So if you ever get a chance to go to any national park, I would say take it.
Was it Thomas Jefferson who instituted the national park department?
That's
It was Roosevelt.
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 Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah.
Was there a different Roosevelt we were thinking about?
FDR is the other one.
Oh, we like Teddy.
Yeah,
Especially
Rough
in the-
Rider. He was the
Night at
original
the
Rough
Museum.
Rider. Yeah.
But no, yeah, and who's John Muir is a good one too.
Up in NorCal.
Yeah.
Wait, speaking of our next location, Big Sur.
Big Sur.
Yeah,
Is that Mid-Cal?
it's south of
South, yeah.
Muir Woods is north of the bay,
But very
like Marin.
a pretty
I'm pretty
sure,
sure.
like redwoods and fields.
Oh
and
yeah,
everything.
you can drive through those massive sequoia trees.
Yeah, I did
Like Hitchcock.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did a motorcycle ride from LA to up to Washington, and my favorite part of the entire trip was riding my motorcycle through Avenue of the Giants.
Yep.
With all those massive redwoods, and they're just unbelievable.
I bet that was awesome.
It was one of the coolest. Like I have the video still of just like a surreal moment. The sun setting. These trees are hundreds of feet tall. They're just, it's very peaceful.
Yeah, hell
and,
yeah.
and the air is so fresh. Yeah, but Big Sur too. I did a Christmas with my sister one year, just me and her. We got a campsite in Big Sur, and
Oh, I remember that.
yeah, it was so cool, man. That was one of my favorite Christmases actually, because all of the family, we're almost adults now, and or we all pretty much adults at that time, young adults, all the kids, and it was a cool moment, dude. Yeah, and hiking around there, the beach, that you can get to down there is just absolutely beautiful.
The bridge and the cliffs
Yeah.
and the
Oh, the bridge, dude. I went to the bridge and I was hopping over this part, and I hit my knee so hard that I wanted to pass out. I got like delusion, I wanted to puke. It was one of those things like you ever had so much pain your body shuts down, and I just pure nausea. I've never felt sicker in my life from hitting my knee on the most solid piece of metal I've ever felt in my life. Like I could have moved the earth before I moved that thing, dude. Not fun. My sister will remind me of that. I'm just happy I didn't break my kneecap. But Big Sur, beautiful.
all these horror stories. We got to get into some nice memories.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the good ones. Don't worry.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm like, you guys need to go explore so you can have these experiences like me.
Yeah. We kind of keep it in the nature vibe, right? Big Sky, Montana.
Yeah.
Yellowstone Club is up there, but you also have the Big Sky Mountain, which is massive, and they have a great jump park.
Yeah.
And just the territory up there for snowboarding specifically. I mean, the golfing and stuff in the summer is like amazing too, but that Big Sky Mountain is just incredible. There's so much powder. You're really high up in elevation, but it really helps with, all the powder you get, and you really feel like you're up in the mountains, and not in the middle of nowhere, because there is like a town in Big Sky, but in that very kind of quaint small mountain town feel.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite places I've been to. It's just absolutely beautiful up there, and that was the second place I ever snowboarded with you, actually.
Oh yeah.
At
Yellowstone.
At Yellowstone, yeah, and it was so nice because I went straight from Jackson Hole, which was
Our next place.
I came from Jackson Hole, and that mountain is one of the most breathtaking, and I would say if you are inexperienced in snowboarding like I was, it was my first time ever going, pretty terrifying. Pretty terrifying, to be honest with you, until you get it down, and then it becomes a lot of fun. But there is one moment where I just sat with my buddy Aaron, who we had on the podcast, Aaron O'Connell, and we just looked out at this view. It was literally 10,000 feet down this mountain until straight flat, and all you can see is just the beautiful, sunset, all the landscape. It was just unforgettable. I'm never going to forget that first time I were there, and then the daunting task as a new snowboarder at the time, trying to make it down that mountain. But a lot of good fun in Jackson Hole. And you got the Tetons right there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Not very similar to Big Sky, but definitely Big Sky is smaller for sure. Coeur d'Alene's a big town and big city. But the lake there is my favorite place in the world to wakeboard and wake surf. The people there are amazing, obviously, like all these places. One of our favorite parts of traveling is the people, the cultures, all of that. I know we're still kind of in the domestic portion, and it applies more, I guess, to like international stuff when you're in other countries, and there's like more of a stark difference of the way people live and culture, stuff like that. However, Coeur d'Alene, man, getting out there and just spending all day on the lake, playing golf at Gaza Ranch, going down to the lake, and it's one of the most beautiful lakes. I think it's rated like top 5 in the country or something.
Really?
Yeah, it's
and we got some great
shallow.
lakes.
It stays warm. Yeah, absolutely. And you can fish in it too. You can catch like pretty decent size, like little striped bass. Like
we gotta go together sometime. That would be so fun.
Yeah, we definitely. You were in Nashville for a year, so we didn't. But
yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Which Nashville also beautiful place.
Yeah. Speaking of.
Yeah. But no, yeah, Gaza. I would say from everything I've heard from Coeur d'Alene and Gaza, and then experiencing places like Jackson Hole and a few others that are that's my favorite kind of landscape. I think in the woods. It's still a little secluded. They've got their unique qualities. It's got wildlife everywhere, and then you get all seasons really get the seasons because it gets cold and in the summers it's really nice as well. But those kind of places I just love.
Pacific Northwest is like one of my favorite biomes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's like from The Office. Yeah. Daryl is like the Pacific Southwest is one of my favorite biomes. It's like, did I really just say that?
That's a great way to describe it, I gotta say.
No, for sure. While we're kind of on nature, Aspen, Colorado.
That's a unique place.
Definitely larger, more developed.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely, I would say a higher end place than most. I mean, Jackson Hole is known for being a pretty expensive place to live.
Aspen, though, has like 3 mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get a lot of variety out there. And then it has like a lot of really nice restaurants like you do here in LA. So there you get that experience, but also that kind of group of people. Like I've run into a lot of people I know from LA up there.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And one of my favorite hats, cowboy hats I got was in there.
There you go.
They do a full custom thing from the ground up, kimosabi.
There you go.
It's a really cool, unique experience and very expensive hats, but very nice.
Okay, so now kind of more like the big city vibe, Miami. We've both been to Miami a lot, and I think there are so many things to do in Miami. It kind of speaks for itself. Yeah. I love how the ocean life is so combined with like the city life, and you literally wave runner and jet ski through the almost like through the city, right? And like all along the coast. It just feels so integrated. It's like, it's very unique and fun. It's
pretty wild seeing all these skyscrapers on a beach, and all this extremely developed city that's only gotten more developed in the past couple of years because everyone started moving out there. But yeah, there's a lot of good food. There's definitely a great nightlife scene.
Confirmed.
Yeah, there's a lot, but it's a different city. I wouldn't want personally. It's not for me I wouldn't want to live there. But it's definitely fun to visit, but I've had some good times in Miami. Yeah. It's worth visiting. Definitely.
Oh, totally.
You got to see that at some point.
And New York City. Another place we both have been.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time there. A lot of good friends there. It's interesting. I usually compare like LA and New York, right? Like New York is smaller geographically. LA is urban sprawl. It's developed to be very spread out. And New York is the opposite, very condensed. And very fast paced. You can walk everywhere. In LA, you have to drive everywhere. And I think I kind of prefer being a little more spread out and not packaged up like sardines. However, amazing city. And, my mom took us when we were younger, me and my older brother, and that's when I kind of got to do a lot of the sightseeing. Like photos with the Twin Towers and, going to all the museums. And I looked back at that photo of us standing in front of the towers and just got really emotional and was like, wow, like, never forget, man. But yeah, not to bring a downer on it, but, great city, and I love it, and I'll always try to go there as much as I can.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's got an endless amount of places you can go at any hour. Food is just, you won't struggle to find great food out there. That's for sure. And there's just so much to do, especially if you know people out there. Like, we've got a good friend, Max Blank, who's showed me some really fun, great places out there. And I've been out there with a couple different companies working. And the first place I ever traveled to in outside of, I guess, Yosemite on a school trip was New York. That was the first place I went, on my own, where I wanted to see this. I'd always wanted to see this city, and I remember doing a helicopter tour, which was probably like 7 minutes or however long they take you on these tours. But that city is so unique and different, and like you said, it's so packed with people. But for me, I like the little, I wouldn't say slow. I mean, I do like the slower pace, but it's more the space I enjoy, which is, Coeur d'Alene and Idaho and, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Yeah. So it's more that versus compiled on top, where it forces you to go all the time. Like in New York, but, so much history there, so much art there, so many, awesome people, and people really want to talk to you there, and get to know you, which is really cool. I feel like LA has a lot of like, what do you do and what can you do for me, but at the same time, met some amazing people in LA. I really love this place. I'm not gonna lie.
Our next place is Maui and Hawaii, and Kona, Honolulu, all the amazing cities in Hawaii. I think it's super simple to explain why Hawaii is an amazing place. The people, the culture, the relaxing feeling you get when you step off the plane, the paddleboarding, the rock running, the surfing. Learned how to surf there when I was 7. It's the food, the fishing. It's just one of the most special places on the planet. I truly believe that.
Yeah. Do you remember it was the first time I ever went to Hawaii. We landed on Maui, and Kaimi picked us up. And he goes, and I've heard this a lot, he goes, oh, you could be my cousin's stunt double. And I'm like, oh, I hear this all the time, like whatever. Okay, who's your cousin, And he goes, Jason Momoa. I'm like, yeah, no, you're right. I probably could be his stunt double. But it just cracked me up, dude. Kaimi is such an awesome guy. And, my prayers go out to him and everyone in Hawaii right now. And, hopefully everyone can help keep raising money for them and all the families out there right now, and help find some solace. But, yeah, man, Hawaii is a special place. We did our film there, The Resort, which was so much fun. And like you said, the people, the culture, the locals, there's just so much respect I have for everybody and everything out there. So it'll always hold a special place in my heart. I know that.
Amen to that. Next up, we have Nashville, Tennessee. Studio 22 went out to Nashville. We were able to do tons of amazing episodes with incredible people, and go out and experience the city out there. Man, is that a lively, entertaining, fun, energetic city. Yeah. Love it there.
Yeah, Broadway is known as the capital of, what is it called? Bridesmaids. What is it called?
Bachelorette capital.
There we go.
Bachelorette party capital.
Yeah, so Broadway is known as the Bachelorette capital of the world, and that place is always going. It's definitely something you want to experience, maybe only once. Maybe you like it more than that. I don't know. But it's definitely an interesting place. And just, I would say 2 things that stand out the most about Nashville is it is a music city through and through. And you're always going to find amazing, great live music consistently. and the food. The food is just fantastic out there. So my hat's off, or my hat's on right now.
Cowboys hats off.
Yeah, my hat's off to Nashville.
And of course the Troubadour Club. Big thanks to Troubadour for hosting us out there.
Amen.
And now we're moving on to the international portion. Cabo San Lucas in Mexico. Incredible place, built on the tourism industry. The fishing I've done in Cabo has probably been the best fishing I've ever done in my entire life. I mean, you just go out on a random morning and catch massive tuna and mahi-mahi and wahoo. And I mean, it's literally crazy how much giant fish you can catch down there and then take it right back in, cook it up, fresh sashimi. Shout out to El Dorado and Chileno Bay down there. But yeah, man, the people love the tourism industry there and are so welcoming and fun and great place.
Yeah, we went fishing, like 4 or 5 in the morning one morning, and the moon was the size of the house. You know, it was massive on the water, and I remember watching the moon set and the sun rise as we went to go have an amazing day of fishing. We caught a lot that day. What was the line from? Oh, I can't believe it slipped my head right now. Remember the line from Step Brothers? Yeah, it's.
It's a trophy fish.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, are bonita fish big? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trophy fish.
Dude, Brock caught the biggest fish I've ever seen.
Yeah, the bonita.
The bonita. No, it was funny because he reeled in, like a small to medium type fish, but we also, all of us caught big fish that day, including Brock.
Yeah.
So it's just funny to point out the one.
But even the mahi, like the bonita was the hardest one to reel in.
It was tough.
It's a strong little beast, man.
Right, man.
It went in, but it really is a beautiful fish. I'll tell you that.
It's like the rabbit and Monty Python Holy Grail.
Yeah, exactly. I love that we were joking about that the whole day, and then one of us caught it,
Yeah, we're saying that line constantly.
Yeah.
And then you just catch the biggest bonita fish ever. And now, Bahamas, specifically the Abacos, where Baker's Bay is. Another place rich in culture and tradition and history. And the fishing, I'm going to keep talking about fishing because I love fishing. Fishing there is incredible. You can, swim with the sharks. You can feed the pigs on the pig islands.
Yep.
And, great golf too, if you like golf. And like Nassau is amazing. You go to Atlantis.
Atlantis is
surfing
fun.
there. So you can wakeboard there. We were actually wakeboarding.
In Atlantis?
And, no,
or just in the Bahamas?
In the Bahamas in general. And like that warm ocean water and like you go right off the white sand in the bright blue water. You're like, this is heaven. This is heaven.
Yeah. I've done some really unique, like cool things that I've never done anywhere else in the Bahamas. But that's one of my favorite places in the world just because of the experiences. The first time I really went somewhere that I felt was very, very special with people I loved very much was the Bahamas. But yeah, Nassau is a lot of fun. Atlantis is a lot of fun. They got the water park there too, which is cool. And I think there's no place that I can think that compares to the Bahamas. I know you got like Fiji and some other places, but the Bahamas is special. The Bohemians are really awesome people, very, very kind and accommodating for everyone that I had met. And I mean, the pigs are so cool. It's a wild. One of them almost attacked me one time pretty good, but they're really cool. It's a cool experience. It's a mind trip walking out, or pulling into the shore and seeing a bunch of pigs on the water, swimming with the nurse sharks is really cool.
Our next place, really the south of France, but Saint-Tropez specifically, if we're trying to kind of nail down cities. The food there, the energy there, felt very lucky to spend some time out there and really, I took French all growing up and can get around in France when I'm there. And it's nice to go somewhere where you can actually use it. But The beaches there are beautiful. You know, you can travel around, the food, the restaurants. Yeah,
I ordered
great spot.
a tuna salad at one of those places in San Tropez. It was like the spot to be. And I remember my third bite in was the saltiest bite I had ever had in my entire life. And I'm sitting here like, what went wrong? Only to find out that I just, you know, scarfed an entire sardine for the first time unknowingly. And it was like eating a brick of salt.
Sardines are terrible.
Yeah, they didn't tell me there was a sardine in the tuna salad, you know. But interesting. They
should put that on the...
yeah, it should be on the menu, I think, next time. But, yeah, I learned sardines are not my first choice of fish that day.
Our next place, Porto Cervo in Sardinia, in that same Mediterranean area. What I loved about that is you can kind of bounce around from island to island, going to different restaurants. Like we went to this one amazing restaurant that was its own island on this like rocky little island where it's like, you know, you didn't even think anything was on there. And then you go and there's like this beautiful restaurant with like white cloth and all this that's like hidden into the rocks, and you're like, holy crap. That was pretty gnarly, and definitely an amazing place where you'd have to save up to go back.
Yeah, I haven't been there, but I've been to Postiano, Portofino, and Capri out there. I would say Portofino is probably one of my favorites. This little small town. All of the buildings are painted differently, much like Postiano. But it's just this unique little place that you port and you come in and the food's great. You go there and I think it's a Bellini. You know, you can order a Bellini. I think that's what it's called. It's great right there on the water, and everyone's dressed nice, and you got the linens and everything. And I know when I was sitting there, I was talking to this guy who owned like a coffee shop out there, and he's like, yeah, Denzel comes here all the time. Oprah comes here all the time. You know, like that. I'm like, what the heck? We're in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, very beautiful out there. Good times.
No bad food mishaps?
Not out there. No. No, not out there.
Not with the Italians.
Actually, that's not true. It might have been, maybe it was Capri. There's this one restaurant that overlooks the bay, and you see all these yachts pull in. It's just so beautiful. But I remember I ordered this chicken, and it was this tiny little chicken, and all of a sudden I looked down, and there was a wasp that had just invaded the food, and I could not get rid of it. So my chicken was sacrificed to a wasp. So, bad food experience? I'll leave that up to you to decide.
I'm just delivering the information.
I love that I remember that stuff. Don't mess with my food.
Staying in Europe, we have Paris, north of Saint-Tropez, obviously. Going back to France, what is not to say about Paris? It is tons of good art, tons of good food, great nightlife. The food isn't quite up to par with Italy, but that's a very, Italy might be my favorite food in the world. So that's like splitting hairs at that point. But yeah, if you haven't been to Paris, I think a lot of like the romanticized versions of stories you hear about it are for the most part true, you know? It's a very cultured city. And they take art and the arts like very seriously. So, the architecture, all that, it's a beautiful city.
Yeah. You got the Louvre, you got the Eiffel Tower, you got the Mona Lisa out there, right? You got a lot of really cool, unique places to visit and a lot of amazing little cafes right there. Enjoy a little coffee and be on your way.
My favorite museum, speaking of museums, I do the Louvre, I do the Pompidou, and I would do Musée d'Orsay. Those would be like my three that I hit every time I go back.
That's cool. There was when I was there, we went outside the city a little bit and we went to the House of Versailles. Super
jealous of that.
Dude.
I've always wanted to see Versailles.
I can't even explain to you how massive this place is. The gardens, I can't remember how many gardens there are. It is one of the most beautiful, unique places I've ever seen in my entire life.
And like we were saying before the show, it was so nice and so outrageous, it sparked the French Revolution.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes sense.
Right.
It truly makes sense. Like it's like gold-plated fencing around the whole entire.
Peak luxury.
Yeah, we'll probably never see anything like that made again in
Right.
today's modern culture. It is worth seeing, and then learning the history behind it is just so fascinating as well. Which on that point, I did want to make a point earlier on, but now that we're international, it actually makes more sense for me. When I went to Venice, was the first time I learned about these books called the Rick Steves books. Have you heard of those?
No.
So these are
Rick
one of the
Steves.
Yeah, look them up. They're one of the coolest things that for anybody that likes to travel, whether that's nationally, internationally, wherever you are at listening in the world, they're travel books. So
got it.
He started when he was 18 years old, and he began traveling, funding his trips by teaching piano lessons. But then when he started, 1976 is when he started this business, right? And it was in Europe, and it started to grow from a one-man operation. Now he's got 100 full-time staff, people that travel full-time and write these books. If you want to maximize your time and your dollar, so you want to save money and see the most amount of things, like when I was in Venice, I think I learned about, it was like Leonardo da Vinci's middle finger was preserved out there, and you can go see it. And there's a reason behind all that. But there's all these amazing, unique little factoids that explain the entire city, whether that's food, whether that's history, museums, all that stuff. I would recommend, spend $20 on one of those books if you're going to go somewhere, and you will have the best time you could possibly have.
Well, perfect. Venice was our next location.
Well, there we go. Venice. Yeah. Is a super cool city. It's the first time I've ever been somewhere that they had no cars.
Right.
Yeah.
Boats.
You travel by boat. Yep.
Yeah.
And in such a cool way. The food is incredible. The people are so cool. Like the history, the museums, the art, like it's where you see it's like art, like the Sistine Chapel, it's painted on all of these beautiful, I don't want to say castles, but these incredible homes, and just it's pretty wild to see.
And it's interesting you mentioned the Sistine Chapel, because our next location is Rome. Spent a week there a couple years ago, and for all the same reasons, Venice is amazing. Rome is too. It's the art, it's the history, it's the architecture. I did a tour of the Vatican in 3 hours. We had because usually it's an all-day thing. It takes at least 9, but we had a special hookup, which was awesome. However, so my tattoo right here is Michelangelo's Pieta of the Virgin Mary holding Jesus. And the sculpture in real life is at the Vatican. So I was able to see an original sculpture of Michelangelo that I have a tattoo of and get a picture with it, which was really cool. And I love all the ancient Greek sculptures and artwork they have. But yeah, the food, there's this place called Ad Hoc with it's specialized in truffles, which was amazing. But yeah, I can't say enough about Rome. One of my favorite cities in Italy.
Yeah.
Makes sense. It's the capital.
I
felt stupid for saying that, so I just was not going to say it.
Yeah. I've been to a few places in Italy, but not Rome yet. Lake Como and Milan and a few others like that, which Lake Como is unbelievable. But you mentioned Greek statues, which, if I may, will get me to segue over to Greece.
Go for it.
Yeah, Greece is amazing. We were in Lake Como for Aaron and Natalie's wedding, Aaron O'Connell. And what we did afterwards was we did a week in Greece, and we landed in Athens, and we took a tour from island to island, and it was unbelievable. Of course, I was on crutches because I had a broken heel that I broke the week before. But hiking Apollo's temple, seeing, the stone that Zeus deemed the center of the world, where he sent his eagles around the world, and that's where they landed, was right there in Greece. And the history behind the entire city, and seeing all those original statues in the museums and everything like that, just it is really cool. It's really cool. And then of course you have Mykonos and Santorini, which are also unique and beautiful as well, but I love the history parts of it that are just so cool.
In true Kane fashion, you went to his homeland.
I went home. It felt like that. It felt like I was being reunited once again.
jumping across the channel, we have London. London's kind of like the European New York to me. That's like the best way I can put it. It's very fast paced, very big, very, also it's big, but it's also dense. Incredible museums there. I think I did like 15 museums when I was there last time. Very central. You can really do anything you want there, and have a great time, depending on what you like to do. And you can get anywhere in Europe, LA to London, super easy flight. And yeah, that's London.
Yeah, London's a pretty big hub, right, for traveling?
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've never been.
And then Ireland, jumping very close by. I worked on a film in Belfast, Ireland, called Your Highness, and I spent an entire summer there when I was, I think, 19 or 20, and it was an incredible experience. People there were super welcoming and very great place to go. You also got to see in Belfast the biggest cranes in the world where they built the Titanic, which is crazy. It's like massive in size. You're like, how were they doing this in the early 1900s? Insane.
Wow.
And from Belfast, you can very easily get to Dublin, which is another very historic, fun, interesting city that we both have been to.
Yeah. Driving across the country now, horizontally, not vertically, you can get across from coast to coast in 3.5 hours, if I remember. So yeah, the green there, the castles, the history. I remember, when I first went, I was 12, which was so cool. A friend of mine, his family traveled all the time, and he was able to bring one friend, and I was lucky enough to be that friend. Shout out to you, Chris. I love you, man, and your family. But even at 12, I remember having to duck through some of these doors because the doors and the beds were only 5 feet long, and I'm just thinking, how small were these Irish people? Well,
it's funny you say that because Europe actually is similar to a New York, right, where space is more expensive and there's less of it. Yeah. But this is like these cities were built long time, hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, cobblestone streets. Obviously, those have been like redone, but it's those historical sites have been around forever. And the city planning was city planning in the 1400s or 1300s, however long, forever, longer.
Yeah. I remember I was out there and I kissed the Blarney Stone, which is meant to give you the gift of gab, which I would say
Mac Dre.
Yeah, I could say I got because before I couldn't even have 2 words in a conversation with somebody. But then one of the locals told me not to do that because some of the other locals, which are less kind apparently, do things that you don't want to put your lips on something. So just think about that before you go and kiss the Blarney Stone next time. But it is really cool seeing that history and those old castles that you can come through. I remember one of them had in the entrance, it was like melted stone, and I was trying to figure out how that could be, and it was right above the entrance. So if somebody was breaking into the castle, they'd have like a giant pot of like molten something, and they would pour it down, and it would melt the stone, but probably basically disintegrate anybody that was trying to break in. So you think
medieval
twice.
tactics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the cells they had were like 1.5 feet wide and like 6 feet deep, and they'd stack like 3 or 4 or 5 people in one of them. And you're like, I would never break the law just so I don't have to sit in this claustrophobic, nightmare of a jail cell. But different times, man. Different times, but really, really cool to see.
Oh my God. You want to do Germany?
Germany, near and dear to my heart. I have worked a lot in Germany. I believe the first place I ever went was Berlin, which has a very unique nightlife. But also just, I met so many friends out there, and we had so much fun. I remember going to the Bambi Awards, which is like essentially the Oscars in Germany, and seeing so many like amazing, successful actors and actresses that I'm just such fans of. and be a part of that was so cool. The GQ Awards were really cool. And I was just kind of thrust into all this stuff at a young age, and I was never really traveled too much at that time, and so Germany was one of those places that I got to frequently visit back, which was really cool. And I remember walking around, and I'm like, I feel normal here, because everyone. There's guys walking down the street that are just 7 foot on a regular, like every fifth guy,
Let's be clear, it's a height thing.
It was a height thing.
Yeah,
it was a height thing. Yeah, exactly. And so I could walk into a store and find clothes that fit me, and I love that.
Hell yeah.
And selfishly, I love that.
The normal clothes are big and tall.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. But there's Berlin, which is a more developed city. You've got outside surrounding cities that are more still kind of like how they were. To a degree, I guess you could say, but less developed in that sense, more countryside stuff. But Munich and Dusseldorf, and I think it was Munich where I saw Morton play. He came in for like a couple hours, and I was on stage with him. And
nice.
I took a train like 6 hours to go see him. We hung out all night, and then he flies back to LA within 6 hours of landing in
Typical
Germany.
Morton.
Yeah, which was just such a cool experience, but it's so fun to experience stuff like that and have friends that are doing cool things like that. But yeah. Berlin's really cool. In Berlin, they have this really cool, I want to say it's weekly, I'm not sure, but it's almost like a swap meet. And then they have people bring out full, drum sets and all their instruments, and they're playing live music, and then all these really cool, unique things that you can go buy and go see, and, just a really cool, fun activity to do in the summer, really.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, good times out there.
And then in October, you can do Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
Our next location, Prague, in Czechoslovakia. Very interesting city. You definitely get the Gothic medieval vibes, which is really cool. They have a classical music museum, which I went to. They also have a nightclub that each floor of the nightclub is a different genre of music. So you can be in like 80s dance music, and then hip hop, and then rock, and then all this different stuff on each floor, which was really cool. I thought that was a unique way to design a nightclub. And then we also would hike. We stayed in a hostel and hiked from the hostel all the way through these really cool diagonal streets that are tiny, and we got lost like 10 times because there's no way to know where you're going. You just kind of, there's a massive hill up there with, the castle and the fort on it. So we just head towards it, right? But yeah, very worth visiting and checking out if you're into Gothic architecture, and a very kind of culture-rich environment. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. I'll put it on my list.
And then a place we've both been to again, which is pretty much all of them, but Barcelona, España.
Yeah.
Estadio Olímpico. Great stadium.
That's awesome. It's Barcelona's beautiful. I love that culture, out there, and the beach vibe, and the food is cool, great, and I think I'm a big fan of what's it called when they take the naps in the middle of siesta? That's not. Is that what it actually is called? Yeah. So the siestas are nice,
Starting dinner at like 1 a.m. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a very cool, different vibe than any other country I've been to, but it's very laid back and chill and beautiful. Just the people are beautiful, the landscape is beautiful. It's definitely some place that I would recommend visiting.
Very similar to Ibiza, where we both have been as well. I got to stop saying that because we both pretty much been to all of them. But Ibiza, amazing island in the middle of the Mediterranean off the coast of Spain, and definitely if you're into music, right, the nightlife there is incredible. But we went for a week, and went to a couple of Morton shows, and it was essentially, you can go there and not drink and still have a blast. Like, we were eating healthy, we were hiking during the day, laying out at the beach, walking. Like, you can get healthy food and honestly do like a health trip out there too. I think that's like a very common misconception. is like you have to go there and just dance until 6 a.m. every night, which we did some of the nights. But again, just there's a lot more to it. And we took the boat out to Formentera, the bright blue water like the Bahamas. We did run into a few jellyfish, however.
There are a lot of jellyfish out there. That's what I noticed in
There are a lot of jellyfish
in that area, in Greece, in France. You don't want to jump into the water, and sometimes late at night, and then you will see that a swarm of them, if that's what they're called, will just come through, and there'd be thousands of them, and that's just not somewhere you want to jump in, personally, unless you're crazy, unless you're loco.
Tell me about Croatia.
Yeah, Croatia. What a beautiful city. I think it's one of the oldest cities in the world, is in Croatia. It's very hot from what I remember. It's so hot that the first time I jumped in the water, it felt like I got punched in the face with a bag of salt, because apparently it's so hot that it'll evaporate into the sky, and then it'll rain back down, and it just gets saltier and saltier over time. So the only wildlife out there is sardines. Which
Your favorite.
I love. Yeah, I love sardines. But the water, the landscape, the history there, some of these old cities, they literally have, it looks like you're in olden Croatia, that they've got these pillars that are still built, and it looks like, my easiest explanation would be like, Greece, or like old Hercules, you seen that from back then. That's what it looks like. You're walking through there. But Croatia is just, I used to be afraid of heights. And that was one of the first places I ever went cliff jumping. Was about 50 feet off, and we went up to the top of this cliff, and it was overlooking, this cove just filled with water, and boats would go into this cave and come back out. People would be swimming all over the place. A couple hundred people there, and it was about 50 feet up, I would say, roughly. And it was razor sharp to get up there, so you had to wear shoes. Well, I threw my shoes over. I was the last person to jump because, of course, I'm afraid of heights. I'd never done this before at the time. Getting ready to jump, and right as I'm about to jump, I hear everyone yell, "No, no, 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 no." And I almost fall over the edge. I catch myself, thankfully, and then right then this massive ship or boat comes out. And if I jumped, I would have landed right on top of this boat. So imagine you're afraid of heights at the time.
Jesus.
There's a boat that comes out, and everyone's yelling for you, and you already don't want to jump. And then that happens, and then you have to jump after that. Finally, the boat passes. I jump. And I'm thinking after I land to hit the water, I'm like, how have I been afraid of this my whole life? It was so much fun. Went up and did it again. And it was not the last time I jumped off something fairly high. And if you go too high, it feels like you're hitting concrete. So don't go too high, I guess. But it was beautiful. Yeah, that city. I remember we went to it was like a restaurant, but it was where they kept all the wine in the mountain and naturally cooled it and so we did wine tasting inside of a mountain in Croatia. I forgot what city, but it was just really cool. And I remember these little kittens came up. They were living in the mountain, and it was 110, 15, 100, maybe 120 at some days. And so you walk in this place, and it's just, 60, 70, 80 degrees inside of a mountain. It's pretty nice. Just like a cool, unique thing I got to do.
We are moving south of Europe now, into Africa. And the first place in Africa I wanted to talk about is Rwanda. And when I went there with my family, you're kind of shocked at how developed the city is. And when I'm talking about developed, I'm talking about massive metropolitan development, skyscrapers, the entire thing, everything that comes along with a full city. And we went trekking with the silverback gorillas in the jungle. So we camped up in the jungle, woke up at 5 a.m, hiked in the jungle all day. And, I asked our guides why they had AKs. I'm like, is that if the gorillas attack you? They're like, no, it's if we run into poachers. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, this is, we're out here. And it was the most mesmerizing thing ever, like watching, you really understand why we're so related to the kind of ape and monkey families in general with DNA by watching them in their natural habitat in the wild. And the babies would crawl on you, and the alphas, you feel the presence of the alpha, and you're standing on wet vines and you can't move if you want to move. So we got false charged by the alpha, where a false charge is when they pound their chest and run at you, and they don't attack you, but your heart's pumping.
Did you get that?
It knocked over our guide and another family that was with us when it charged because it like grazed them.
That's intense.
And oh my god,
It's just
it
a
was
show of force, right? Like a
show of dominance, show of force.
yeah.
And then we left after that because the alpha says when it's time to go. And we also visited the Genocide Museum in Rwanda, which was one of the most sobering experiences of my life, where you're standing on a grave of over 10,000 people. And what the point of the museum is to not only highlight the genocide in Rwanda, but to highlight other genocides throughout history. And the more aware people are of how deadly and how devastating they are, you know, the more we can try to prevent them in the future. And it's hell on earth. A genocide is hell on earth, and it's the worst part of the human mind and soul is creating anything in that world. And the reason I mention that is because that's what you're supposed to do. When you visit that and you feel that, you know, you're supposed to talk about it. But from Rwanda, we went to Kenya and did the traditional safari trip, the Ngorogongo crater, which was fantastic. And then we kind of got the full safari experience, which was great. And Brock, you have a similar safari experience.
Yeah, and I didn't go there for safari, so I was very grateful when I got to see that, because I mean, it's nothing like I could explain to anybody, and I don't think you can really understand it. I mean, maybe you can, but I don't think you can understand it unless you've had that experience to be up close to
Lions and hyenas.
Exactly, and you
fucking awesome.
I remember seeing a hyena for the first time. I'm like, I had no idea they were that big.
Yeah,
like they are big. They're decently sized compared to a lion. Actually, they're
right.
Which is so wild. And seeing, I think the only thing I didn't see out there, which makes sense because they're primarily, endangered, was the rhino. But I remember landing.
You saw leopard? You see a leopard?
Yeah.
Damn. See, that's
Very rare.
harder to see. Yeah.
Very rare. But I went out there because I had this jewelry line years and years ago who I partnered with a friend of mine, and he had a friend from Denmark who was working at this place called the Karen Blixen camp. So there's about 10 camps, I want to say, out there that their whole point of existing is they give people experiences to go out there and experience the conservatory, which is where the protected area of land where there's no poaching allowed. So they protect it to protect the animals. So any money that comes in
kind of like our national park system, just for people out there. Yeah.
So it funnels into the animals, and it also funnels into the people to give them education, to give them opportunity, to give them skill sets like becoming a chef, become a certified chef, and then they can go get a job, and then they can have money to bring back to their families that are just looking to get fresh water and sustainable food and whatever it may be, and so that education helps them, and all the money that goes into those camps, it goes back and funnels back into the community and into the animals. And so it was a very beautiful experience, and I'm very grateful I got to be a part of. And we were trying to help raise money in any way that we could through that experience. And I think baboons would run through the the camp.
Yeah, the monkeys are crazy out there, dude. They'll literally, you can't leave your door open or else they'll come in and take all your stuff and mess everything up. And
the bugs are intense. I remember where we were, there was a watering hole, and so you'd see 50 hippo every morning when you go out and have your coffee or you have dinner out there. And we got charged leaving by a bull elephant, leaving the camp at one day. But there was a point, there's these 2 points where we found a pride of lion, which were primarily full grown. There's probably about 11 of them, and then the mother lion. And then, so seeing that and that love that they have for each other is just so
I
wild.
love watching lions play.
And you're in these vehicles with open windows, no tops, no nothing, and you're sitting here like, how how does it make any sense that we're sitting here next to these incredible predators and they're unbothered by us, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the elephant, like we found a group of elephant. There's probably about 50 of them. And the alpha just comes up to the front of as they're crossing this plain, comes up to the front of our car, and he's just eating, grass or whatever it was, staring at us. And the depth that you could feel looking into an elephant's eyes, it's just, I've never seen or felt anything like it. And just being there, experiencing that, unforgettable. It's just one of the most beautiful things I think I've ever experienced, to be honest with you. And Kenya and Africa in general is just such a unique, beautiful place that, I mean, it's I don't even know what to say besides like it took my breath away, and it was amazing that I got the opportunity to be there in any way. So yeah,
I'm with you 100% there. And it is funny you mentioned that, like the Jeeps, they're open and all that. I don't think I ever felt unsafe that entire trip, like anywhere in Africa. I think like just do what you're told, right? Like don't mess anything up and don't do anything totally out of the norm. And like they do a really good job of making you feel safe, and because you are, like the animals don't want to attack you. They want to survive and they want to thrive. And like, unless you're doing anything to, get in an unsafe area, like you really do feel safe.
One of the coolest things about that whole trip, and just like you're saying, you do feel very safe, is the Maasai warriors that we were with. At one point we did
the Maasai too.
We went to track on foot elephants so that we can keep them safe from poachers, to get these necklaces, tracking necklaces, GPS locating, I guess you'll call them a necklace. So we tracked on foot for days with these Maasai warriors, and the one that was leading us, this guy, he came and studied. I think he even taught here in America. Was about 70 years old. He didn't break a sweat on this hike, like miles and miles and miles on foot through Africa. And man, I'm telling you, like, he would go and he'd walk through the forest, which is already pretty intense to navigate. He'd chill and wait for us to catch up. And then he'd go ahead, and then he'd chill and wait for us to catch up. And they can throw these, spears they have with precision accuracy, 100 plus yards, I believe. And after this whole trip, he ended up giving me his spear, which was so cool. But they were just razor sharp on one side. And so I still have it to this day. But that experience of like, meeting this guy that was more well-educated than somebody who grew up in, the American education system. He knew more about America and its history than I did, by far. Like this guy was just amazing in every way, shape, or form. So I keep saying my hat's off, but my hat's off to those Maasai warriors, and they're really, really cool people. Really cool people.
And last on our list, we have kind of combining Petra in Jordan, the lost city of Petra in Jordan, and then Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And basically, we did this all in one stretch. And Tel Aviv is a bustling city with nightlife and amazing people and a great industry. And the beaches there are kind of like Miami. They're massive. They're gigantic. Right on top of a large city, which is really cool. Petra, though, if you think Petra, think Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, right? That's the city carved into the walls. And what they did is, back in the ancient times, they built an entire city in these crevices and these massive mountains and rock wall to hide from caravans, right? That's why it's like the lost city of Petra, is because they built it into the mountain to hide from caravans and invading armies, and they stayed and thrived for years and maybe centuries. I got to look that up, but it was effective for a very long time, and it's incredibly beautiful. And the technology they had to build cities into rock, like, you got to imagine, they don't have heavy machinery. Like, how did they do this? And we talk a lot about kind of ancient civilizations and stuff from the past, and it's like the most intriguing part of that is, how did they do it? with such precision and artistic feel. I mean, I can't describe it, but highly recommend the Lost City of Petra in Jordan and Tel Aviv. And then for grand finale, Jerusalem. I'll just say very quickly, I mean, I think the spiritual nature of that city, when you get there, I think you'll understand the feeling of the Holy Land. Regardless of what religion you are, I think the history of that area resonates there in the people and in the architecture, and you can feel it when you're there. We went to Dome of the Rock and did the West Wall and all that, and you can tell that's a special place when you go. Highly recommend.
I could be completely wrong, and we can cut this, but is it Petra where they had this really unique water irrigation system that actually heated and cooled the water? I think at least they heated it. I think in some way.
Look it up. I don't know.
But it is like so insanely intricate. I feel like I watched one of those shows on like National Geographic at one point or something like that, but years and years ago. But there's this really unique way that they preserved water that channeled through there, I think.
The Lost City of Petra was made in around 300 BC and literally survived for about 1,000 years.
Yeah. So Petra had a hydraulic system connected canals, cisterns, springs, and fountains throughout the city. So
yeah.
The Nabateans, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Were experts at surviving in the desert because they knew how to collect and distribute water. So they would do this, and then it would go through different levels of throughout this entire city. And it's just, man, it is one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. And that's how they, preserved water. One of the ways, years and years ago, they're living in the middle of a desert. It's awesome.
Seen on the Discovery Channel.
Yeah. Go travel. And also, check out this sweet bear head. Studio 22, a gift from the legend himself, Will Meltman. He knows me well.
Brock knows me well.
I got a swivel head and he's got a bobblehead.
Thank you for watching Studio 22.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
And follow our socials at Studio 22 Podcast.